Right now, the House Foreign Affairs Committee holding a hearing on turbulence in the Middle East. This as Reuters reports that gunfire at the site of the suspected gas attack in Syria has been delayed, and it has delayed the arrival of chemical weapons inspectors. Let's bring in Tom Rogan. He writes on politics and foreign policy for the Washington Examiner. As we continue to learn what is happening on the ground there in Syria, now we know that there is a delay with those inspectors getting in there, Tom.
Yeah, well, there's only a delay because the Russians want there to be a delay so that they can continue to clean up the site, which is to say, remove any evidence of a chemical weapons strike, which we knew occurred there. We know they're cleaning up the site. I think President Trump, as far as is feasible, should declassify that information, and he should get Nikki Haley to confront the Russians at the UN, as Adlai Stevenson once did with the Cuban Missile Crisis, because they're playing games over the bodies of dead children and the lung matter of dead children.
So what needs to happen as far as sanctions on Russia are more necessary?
I think they are. And look, I understand that the impulse towards dealing with Russia should be based on a constructive basis, punishment where necessary, and practical engagement where possible. But in this case, where we see in the aftermath of both the US strike and the original incident, the Russians still playing games, and they know that we know that they're doing this. There has to be a response that signifies, look, all right, if you want to escalate, as they are, in hiding the truth, we have to escalate as well. And I think we should introduce sanctions, specifically targeting those military and intelligence officers at the lower levels who are responsible here, and sending the message that this won't be forgotten.
Well, if and when those inspectors are able to get in there, we asked Senator Rand Paul on this program yesterday what he thinks that they'll find. Listen.
I think this is a real question, and I think that Assad is either the dumbest dictator on the planet Earth or he didn't do it. Because you think about it, they've been winning the war for over a year. The only thing that galvanizes world opposition to the Assad regime, the only thing that gets us involved at all is the use of chemical weapons.
Your response, Tom?
Well, I mean, I just, honestly, I think it's embarrassing because he knows better than Rand Paul is a bright guy. He goes to his briefings on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He knows that's not the case. You know, as a senator, he is entitled to privileged information. I wish that he would talk to some of his colleagues on the Intelligence Committee. Perhaps then he would get a better insight. But it's simply not true. And again, you know, the reason that Assad does this with Putin and why they're going to do it again is that they think there are no feasible consequences to it. Fortunately, President Trump has taken more steps than his predecessor in dealing with it. But until you impose costs for this kind of activity, then it will continue. And the final point here is ultimately it is not about those dead children, as tragic as that is. It's about the principle in the 21st century that chemical, biological, radiological, or one day nuclear weapons are absolutely unusable in terms of both civil and military situations. And if you don't enforce that, well, get ready for the whirlwind in the coming years, because every other nation will say, why not use it and terrorize and kill those who we wish to terrorize and kill.
Meanwhile, Tom, there was these briefings on Syria yesterday that lawmakers seemed to be in disagreement over whether or not this president had the authority to act without Congress with that airstrike. And there's reports that Defense Secretary Jim Mattis wanted some sort of congressional approval or notification. We're not quite sure at this point, but that seems to be coming out of that meeting before that strike happened in Syria, and he was overruled. Have you been able to dig into this anymore?
Well, I don't know specifically what Jim Mattis' position was, but as a Marine commander, he wants, I think, clarity of command. And President Trump, I think, in terms of authorizing this strike in pretty rapid order with allies, did that. And again, constitutionally, both in the letter of the law and the precedents, which is defined by previous presidential conduct and the Supreme Court's unwillingness to take up challenges to that authority. Article 2, Section 2, the president is the commander-in-chief. As I see it, at least in a short-term incident like this one, under 60 days, Trump is absolutely within his authority, and frankly, it's not even that much of a debate.
Interesting stuff. Tom Rogan, and that hearing is underway, the House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing. We just had the chairman, Ed Royce, on a bit earlier. Obviously, our involvement in Syria will be